everybody. It's Jeff Antoniuk. Welcome to Digging Deeper Jazz. So today I want to talk about kind of a different pentatonic scale. And the whole point of any of these scales is a different sound, some different vocabulary. And this kind of refers to the video that I did on patterns. People really dug that video. And I just very quickly at the end said, oh, here's a cool thing we can do with the pentatonic, but let me do this pattern. And a lot of people were asking about that. So let's talk about this concept of on a major 7 chord, building a pentatonic on the 5th scale degree. Sounds like a lot of calculating. It's not so bad. And this is a really cool sound. I was sort of reminded of it last summer by Rick Margitza, who was teaching at Maryland Summer Jazz with us, and this is a sound that he likes to use a lot, and I've sort of been investigating it, and it's a cool one that you guys can get to. Now, a major 7 chord is kind of easy, right? What was the first scale you ever learned? A major scale, and probably one of the first chords, major, right? But most of us sound terribly boring when we get to the major chord. The dominant chord, that's where all the cool altered stuff or, the bluesy stuff can happen. And then we get to the major chord and it's boring and we don't know what to do. So today I want to try to spice things up a little bit on that. C major scale. So let me do this. I'm going to start a C vamp going on, C major 7 vamp. I'm going to play the C major 7 scale, pretty straight ahead. Then what I'm going to do is what you see, item number 2 on the sheet, is I'm going to play the G major pentatonic scale against that C chord. I'm going to play the C scale to begin with, but then I'm going to play the G scale against it. Let's listen to it, look at it, and then we're going to talk about what's going on here. Okay, when I played that G scale, you notice when you look on the sheet, all the notes from G major pentatonic are included in a C major scale. G pentatonic is a subset of C. It's all those notes, but missing some. So how could G major pentatonic be of any interest at all? It's just those notes, but less. That's like having $50 or $100. $50 is $100, but less. That's not as good. This is better, I would say. So the organization of these notes, there's 2 things going on. First of all, the root isn't in there. There's no C in this scale. And in the G major pentatonic, that's actually a good thing. And now the organization of the pentatonic scale. Whenever anyone talks about pentatonics, the sort of unspoken thing that I'm speaking about here is the organization that we get from the pentatonics. That's where things get really cool. Now what I want to do, so you've heard that sound. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty rich. Those notes from the G major pentatonic scale are some of the cool, powerful notes. We have the 6th scale degree, the 7th scale degree, the 9th scale degree. So we get a lot of the wonderful, rich extensions of the major chord. So we're sort of front-loading those and getting rid of the root and some of the boring stuff would be a way to think about it. Okay, so now here's where it gets very interesting, is when we start applying shapes or patterns to this. So let me do this. I'm going to play item number 3, and you can see it's a simple pattern. And you can probably figure out the pattern. A note, go below, come back to the first note. Now go up to the next note, go down, come back to that note. Go up to the next one, go down, come back to that one. So it's a pretty simple pattern, but it's actually very deep. What's going on is there's a grouping of 3. The little pattern has 3 notes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's a grouping of 3 notes, but we're in 4/4. So grouping of 3 notes when we have 8 notes in a measure. So it's actually a very cool rhythmic thing going on. So let me play this sound for you. that's a pretty great sound. So we have that grouping of three. There's an interesting sort of cross rhythm that goes on. We're playing these interesting notes that are sort of far up in the chord, far up meaning sevenths and ninths and 13ths and things like that. Plus the skip that's built in. The skip is good. So now, if you saw this in somebody's solo and you're analyzing the solo, you could say, oh, well, it's a C major 7 chord and they're playing notes from C major. And you wouldn't be wrong, but that's actually not what's happening. There's something deeper. There's a pattern going on behind there. And so you may be able to see inside and go, oh, not only is it the C major scale, but there's a pattern. And now what is that pattern? And you could figure out, G major pentatonic. So the shapes that are inside that pattern make it really, really interesting. Let's go on to the next item. And all I do is change the rhythm a little bit. It's the same pattern, but now I'm adding a little bit of a syncopation. I'm taking away the group of three, but I'm adding a syncopation. So it's the same notes in the pattern, but I'm changing the pattern with rhythm. So this is a whole nother video of how we can take one pattern and play it 15 different ways by tweaking the rhythm a little bit different. It's a huge study that I love. I love working with rhythm, not always notes and harmony, rhythm. So check this variation of it. All right, I know what's going to happen. You're going to steal this lick, you're going to take it, you're going to play it on a gig or a jam session or play it for some friends, and they're going to get all excited and hire you and give you a recording contract. You're going to take the recording contract, and where am I? I'm just here in YouTube land, and you're getting rich and famous off my lick. All right. That's okay. That's how this works. It's an amazing sound, isn't it? It's really, really cool. And that would be on a chord where usually kind of nothing happens for many of us, or we have one or two little things we know. This is such a cool sound. It's a rich sound. Perhaps it's a more modern sound. By the way, any of these scales can be taken and used as comping ideas on guitar and piano. So you could take that G major pentatonic and take elements of that and put that into your comping and see what happens. Comping comes from scales, scales from comping. It feeds back on each other. So check this out if you're a piano player or a guitar player or an arranger, arranging for 3 horns or something like that. Cool, very, very good. By the way, I want to let you know, so I've been talking to you folks about jazzwire.net, the subscription website where we have hundreds of people from around the world working. Right before starting this video, I was working with somebody from Huntsville, Alabama, who's coming on to Jazzwire. And he was sort of anxious about putting together his recordings to send into Jazzwire because I want to hear everybody play. And just the logistics of doing the recordings, and it was a drag and he was putting it off. So we jumped on a Zoom call, and 15 minutes later, he's on Jazzwire. So if you've been putting off getting on Jazzwire, and if the recording is holding you back, or you're sort of anxious about that, or the mechanics of it, let's do a phone call. I can do your audition to come in that way. And I call it an audition. It allows me to hear your playing so we can have a sensible conversation, so I can help you move forward. So email me, diggingdeeperjazz@gmail.com, and that will be the way to get on. So you register for Jazzwire. I'll give you a coupon code for 50% off too. We'll get you into Jazzwire, and then we'll do that call. I can hear you play, and you are up and running and working with all these other folks at jazzwire.net. Okay, well, what I want to do is finish off here. So you know that this simple equivalency, when you see a major 7 chord, major pentatonic built on the 5th. Well, okay, so the barrier to entry is, do you know your major pentatonics? Okay, you can learn, not a difficult scale, right? And so now you work on some of those patterns to fit over it. And then the next step is, can you fit it into some music? This all, like if you're going to become rich and famous with this stuff, got to fit it into music, right? So the last example I'm going to do for you, playing on the way out, I'm going to play a 2-5-1 progression, which exists in, every song ever, whether it's Girl from Ipanema or Take the A Train or whatever it is, Origin by Sonny Rollins. So what I'm going to do is improvise over the 2 and the 5 chord. And then when I get to the 1 chord, I'm going to always be playing only pentatonic based on the fifth, only G major pentatonic, only those 5 notes. So, and I'm going to do it a number of times through so you can really get a sense of what this sounds like. Would I do this every time on every major chord? Well, no. As an artist, I'm not going to paint the same thing the same way every single time. That is actually not art. That is the anti-definition of art. So I want to have 10 or 30 different ways to approach a major chord. But this is a really good one. And for a lot of you, this is going to be a fantastic next one.